Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm coming to you with a tag that I've created simply because I want an excuse to share my favorite collections on my bookshelf with you. I'm naming the tag the Loyal to the Fault tag. The concept of it is very simple. If you have an author or two in your collection that you are really into and you're basically loyal to them until the end, so every book they release you go out and buy right away. You have most, if not all, of their books in your collection. You just keep rereading their books, you just keep coming back to them. They will forever be on your TBR list. That is loyal to a fault. Even if they have a couple books out that just weren't your cup of tea, you still support them and buy them anyway because you just love them so much for whatever reason, which is what you are going to share in your video. If you feel like you can do a video like this where you have an author that you just want to brag up so hard, please, I invite you to do so. I'm going to be doing two authors. First section is going to be on the author named Ted Dekker, and I've mentioned him probably numerous times in my other videos because I've loved him since the dawn of my existence. He's a very creative writer. He's very unique. His world building is amazing. He puts a very high emphasis on symbolism and allegories, which is totally up my alley. One specific thing about his symbolism is that it's often very dark and bizarre and like kind of messed up, and I love that. So I've been addicted to Ted Dekker ever since the first book I read, because it was just like full of dark and messed up and bizarre, like creepy symbolism, and I was just all for that. I have all the books back here. There are so many of them. He has an insane amount of books, which I love about Ted Dekker because you get new material from him every couple months. Like, he puts out material very quickly, which is good but also very bad. One of the critiques I would have about Ted Dekker is that sometimes his material doesn't seem like it's developed quite as well as I would like it to be. Like maybe some of the lyricism of the writing could use a little bit of a bump up, and maybe if he would have just like chewed on it a little bit more, it would have turned out a little bit better. However, I can overlook it just because like his concepts are just unreal. And then over here you have these two piles that are my Frank Peretti collection. He's the other author I'm going to be doing today. He's the opposite of Ted Dekker. He doesn't put out new material every couple months. I would say he doesn't even put out new material every couple years. He writes very slowly. That's good because his writing is so poetic, and like just the lyricism and what he's trying to say is just so clear, but I don't get new material from him very, very often, which is quite sad. He is an author that relies heavily on symbolism as well. His symbolism isn't as dark and nowhere near as like messed up and weird as Ted Dekker. So I love both of them, and they both have like very strong qualities about them. The books that I've read recently enough to remember what they're about, I'll give you a quick little down low and spiel about them to try and inspire you to read them yourself. But if I haven't read them recently enough to remember them, I'll just kind of just show you. So without further ado, let's get started. The first book I want to show you is one that I have read 3 or 4 times. It is 3. It's so bright in here. I guess I would call it like a psychological thriller. It's about this guy named Kevin who's driving down the street one day, and all of a sudden he gets a phone call, and the guy on the phone identifies himself as Slater, and he tells Kevin that he has 3 minutes to reveal his sins to the world or he will blow his car up sky high. This entire book is just like a cat and mouse chase, and Kevin trying to figure out what exactly it is that Slater wants him to reveal. This is a fast-paced book. It's so good. What I like about the villains and the psychopaths in Ted Dekker's books are so weird, like bizarre. I don't know where he gets his ideas from. So that's book 1. The next thing I'm going to show you is a series. If you're going to start reading Ted Dekker, this would be a good place to start because a lot of his other books actually make reference to this series. This series, if I had to give you like an illustration of it, it's like these would be the roots of his writing and everything else grows from it. Sometimes he'll just like randomly put references in other books and sentences here and there, that sort of point back towards these books, which is really cool. He really makes an effort to sort of tie a lot of his books together in just very subtle ways. For the most part, it's really cool and it works really, really well. Sometimes it's stretching it a little bit, but like there are moments, I'm not gonna lie, where I'm like, okay, cool it. Like that just, it didn't work. Like it was just too much of a stretch and it ended up not making sense. So the trilogy, or I guess the group of books, is called the Circle series. These are backwards. It starts with black, and then red, and then white, and then green. This is so cool. He released this book and it caused this whole series to be one big circle. So the way the fourth book ends is the way the first book starts. So you can literally start this series anywhere in the series, and it's almost like you'll have a whole new reading experience. Depending on where you start, it'll make sense no matter where you start. Like how mind-blowing is that? That's just so amazing. This series is about this guy named Thomas who hits his head. He all of a sudden wakes up in another world, and this world is like good and evil are represented literally in creation, as opposed to sort of just being a metaphorical concept like it is in our world. Every time he falls asleep in either world, he wakes up in the other one. This whole series is just his journey throughout these two worlds, figuring out how they are connected and why he's being transported through these two worlds, like why him kind of thing. They are so amazing, guys, and they're so unique. Black is the first one technically, but I've sort of been wanting to read the series, like just maybe starting with like white. One thing I love about Ted Dekker, and I think this is like one of the major things that has kept me coming back to him over and over, is just how beautiful his covers are. And Frank Peretti, both of them have like great artists. Like whoever designs their book art is just incredible. Props to them. This is actually the first book that I read by Ted Dekker. It's called Showdown, and this is the one that's just full of dark symbolism, and it's messed, and the characters are messed, and it's so good. It's so good, guys. This book is about a town called Paradise and a monastery nearby. A bunch of kids are being raised there. The next one in this sort of series, this is Saint, and look at this cover. It is incredible. He has been recruited to an assassin group, and I'll show you this one too, Sinner, about kids who grew up in that monastery. This one doesn't really have to do with anything. It's called Skin. It's about these people who get stuck in this town where these like weird messed up like murders are happening. Their surroundings are being like very like over the top manipulated. Like buildings will start disappearing. I don't know if I can tell you much more than that because it would be like major spoilers, but it's very good. I reread this recently and I really enjoyed it. This one really has nothing to do with the other ones. It just makes like a quick reference to the Circle trilogy. This is one of the references that I was like, I don't know if that worked as well. So that's those ones. This is Blink of an Eye, also known as Blink. I read it when it was called Blink, and when I bought it, it's now called Blink of an Eye, I guess. So I'm not sure if there's any difference between the two. I don't know why he decided to change it. Personally, I like just the word Blink better. It's short and sweet, to the point. Blink of an Eye seems sort of redundant to me, but whatever. Cover's really nice. Adam, from what I can remember, this is about a serial killer. Obsessed, which I think is about a guy who discovers that he has like some sort of like Nazi lineage in his family. I could be completely wrong. I know it has to do with like the Holocaust somehow. I remember it being good, but again, like I want to reread all this stuff. I'm like inspiring myself to reread all these Ted Dekker books. Emmanuel's Veins, look at this cover, it's beautiful. I don't remember all the details about it. All I know is that the theme is lust, and it is so good. When does lust become destructive? I want to reread this, all of them. These two books were actually a collaboration of his with an author named Erin Healy. I'd love to read a couple of her books, but I haven't got around to it. But look how pretty they are. I think these are some of the most beautiful books in my collection. So you have Kiss and you have Burn. No idea what they're about because it's been ages since I've read them. I want to and will reread them eventually. Ted Dekker put out a series that's just basically looking at different serial killers. If you like his development of serial killers and just the messed up stuff he does with their character development, You will love these books. Ted Dekker's a weird guy. So you have Bone Man's Daughters, The Bride Collector. This one was my favorite one. I remember loving this one, The Priest's Graveyard. And then I was online looking for some Ted Dekker books I had to add to my collection, and I came across this, The Sanctuary, and I read the description, and I guess it's a sequel to this one, and I'm so embarrassed that I didn't know about it, considering I loved The Priest's Graveyard. Yes, I want a sequel, please. I ordered that so fast, and so I'm really excited to read this book. This series I'm like super excited about. The first one I got for Christmas from my mom, and it is signed. Look at that. I am so excited. I have a signed Ted Dekker book. When I opened that and saw that it was signed, I was so pumped, you guys. The first one is called Forbidden, the second one is called Mortal, and the third one is called Sovereign. And look how lovely. These covers are so lovely. They are gorgeous. This is another collaboration he did with an author named Tosca Lee. I loved these books. I remember absolutely like falling in love with one of the characters. Like in love, obsessed. Crushing hard. These books are sort of in a futuristic dystopian society where the government had decided that emotions were nothing good. Emotions just like led to wars and destruction and like bad things where people made like irrational decisions, so they found a way to get rid of emotions. And so in these books, people don't have emotions. They are just strictly literal thinkers. This guy, whatever his name is, he finds a vial of blood, and it comes with a cryptic message that says, if you consume this blood, you will be brought back to life. That's all I'm going to tell you about that. I highly recommend this series. They're called the Books of Mortals. That's what the series is called. The Books of Mortals by Ted Dekker and Tosca Lee. So good. Please go read them. Maybe I'll read them again and do a review. Let's do it. Maybe we'll marathon it. Why not? The next series is one that he actually just recently released. The series is called The Outlaw Chronicles, and this one is called Outlaw. So this book isn't technically part of the Outlaw Chronicles, but it's the start. You have Outlaw. It's about this lady who like goes on a boat with her baby, and they end up like crash landing like in a storm in the middle of nowhere in like the jungle. They get like taken by a tribe of hooligans, a savage tribe. I remember liking the first half, and then after a certain point, it sort of went downhill for me. But what comes out of these is these books, which I do really like. So you have Eyes Wide Open, and again, these covers are just incredible. You have my favorite of the series called Water Walker, and then you have Hacker. These are stories about other kids who grew up in the monastery. They don't really have powers, more so that they just have very exceptional circumstances in their stories. These books really like open your mind to new ways of thinking about life, and they really give you just a new perspective on how to cope with like really bad things that are happening to you. This one is about two kids who end up getting stuck in a psych ward. They're mistaken as patients. Who doesn't like a good psych ward psychological thriller story? This one is about a girl who grew up in like a home that was like so religious that it was abusive. Like they took their religion to an entirely new level. This book is super interesting. This was my favorite one in the series. Hacker is about a girl who is a really good hacker. The final Ted Dekker book that I have to show you is one that I actually recently did a review on, because I recently just listened to it on audiobook and decided like I need to stop buying Ted Dekker books on audiobook or Kindle, because I know I'm just gonna go out and buy the hard copy anyway. So it's 80/30. This is about a woman named Avia who lives in the desert tribes in the time of Jesus. She's from the desert tribes, the Badu tribes that are just like out in the middle of nowhere. She really has nothing to do with the story of Jesus, so it's a very interesting perspective on it. Okay, so those are my Ted Dekker books. Let's move on to Frank Peretti books. Actually, the first one I have to show you is a collaboration between the two of them. Amazing! It's called House. It's literally like their take on a classic horror story where these people are driving and they get stranded on a road, and so they see the nearest house and they go to it for like help, and it ends up being this really like messed up, haunted, like scary scary house, like possessed, not even just haunted, like this house is possessed. Ted Dekker's dark influences are very heavy in this book, but Frank Peretti's lyricism is also very heavy in this book, so you get literally the best of both worlds. The Oath by Frank Peretti, the way this paper looks is the way it feels. Like it looks like this old, like overused paper, and that's exactly the way it feels. Like it's just so nice. This book is one of my favorites by Frank Peretti. I've read it probably, I think, 3 times. It's not fantasy, but it has a hint of fantasy because it has a dragon in it. You have this guy, he goes to this certain town to investigate the death of his brother, who supposedly died by a bear attack. But once he gets there, he starts to discover that the town has certain secrets. It's so good. The symbolism is amazing. Like, it's just, I can't even. This book, Illusion by Frank Peretti, look how gorgeous that cover is. This book is his most recent work. It is so good. If you guys are looking for a good and creative standalone story, this one is awesome. It's about this girl named Mandy and her husband, who are, they're magicians, like really well-known magicians, and they get in a tragic accident and she dies, but at the moment of her death, her consciousness is transported into her past self. She wakes up in her 17-year-old body, but in the present year, when she was 40, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't know if that makes sense at all. This book is amazing. I highly recommend it. Do it. Go read it. Do it. Do it. This one is called The Visitation, and I've read this book a few times as well. It's about a town. A lot of these books are about towns. All of a sudden they're seeing all these like supernatural signs, and then this guy comes into the town and claims that he is Jesus Christ. Very interesting read. This book I haven't read in years, so I don't remember anything about it, but it's called Prophet. This book I haven't read in years, but I remember it was more of a sci-fi thing. It's called Monster. I just remember a bunch of people are being attacked by this monster. And yeah. The final ones I want to show you are probably the most popular of Frank Peretti's novels. They are called This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness. If you like books that are about like spiritual or supernatural things, these are so good. You're following these characters who are living in the real world, but what they don't realize is that they are surrounded by angels and demons, and so this story is from the perspective of both. So like what is happening in the supernatural realm while we're walking around just thinking that we're like all there is. These books are so good. So that is it. That is all I have for you. Those are my Frank Peretti and Ted Dekker collections. I will continue to buy them until the day I die, just because like they've shown me with their writing and with their concepts, like they're just up my alley. They are the perfect authors for me because they are everything that I love in books. They're strong in symbolism, they're strong in storytelling, they're strong in world building. That's it for the Loyal to a Fault tag. Again, I'm not going to tag anyone, but if you feel like you can do this, like if you have a few authors on your shelf that you're just looking to just babble about, please do it. I tag you. Tag me in your video so that I can watch it. I want to just like hear about your favorite authors. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.